This time we're going to be looking at the small Cretaceous ceratopsian called Protoceratops, well, late Cretaceous. Now, we're talking about Protoceratops in terms of social behaviors. So, Protoceratops has been found with multiple fossilized groups, some juvenile aggregations, and just keep in mind, aggregation is a group of animals. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were social. Um, Dinosaur aggregations are most commonly found as juveniles. And so maybe this can mean that they group for safety or during migration, but juveniles are the most common form of aggregation, even though juveniles make up 5% of the fossil record. So juvenile aggregations don't mean a lot. But then the Protoceratops has also been found with subadult pairs of similar sizes and groups of adults facing the same direction. Now, facing the same direction also doesn't mean they were grouping, but it's a little bit closer. Like, they could have been running from some event and just all been running in the same direction, but that also could have not been happening. So they might have been grouping to breed, which is like a pretty common thing to be happening among animals, like in general. So there's the tiny, tiny bit of information for ceratopsians, or not all ceratopsians, since we know ceratopsians are kind of like thought of to be group herd animals, but for Protoceratops. Now, there's another dinosaur I wanted to talk about. It's not pictured in here, but I will put an image on the screen and I'll write who that's by. It's called Mussarus. I believe it means mouse lizard. It was a very early sauropod from the Triassic, so way before Protoceratops. It split from Dinosauria, pretty early, and it's not too related to ceratopsians, but they're all Dinosauria, so they're all dinosaurs. They're all a little bit related. And Mussarus also had juvenile aggregations, so once again, no confirmation of any grouping there because juvenile aggregations are really common among every dinosaur. But Mussarus also formed age-based groups, meaning there were congregations of juveniles, but also adults in, little pairings. Now, these juvenile congregations were all huddled together. There was a group of 11 that all died at once. So, since they were all around the same age, in the same area, they might have been, one litter or brood from a nest. And these adults and single Mussarus were also found near these little babies that died in the nest. So if we assume that these were all together, then it could suggest a larger herd with age-segregated groups. And then also with the juveniles, since they were alone, separated from the adults, they weren't the same as the cynodonts that we mentioned previously. They weren't following their parents around. They were sitting all together and protecting each other while the parents went off and foraged for them. So this could suggest that maybe the whole group worked together to raise the young, instead of just the parents of those specific young. And there were also groups not for breeding or raising young. There were older juveniles, ones that weren't born in the same group as the ones that just hatched from the nest, but they weren't old enough to breed. So they were hanging out with the herd, maybe for protection. That's always an option. But they were living with this herd full time, probably. And again, these Mussarus, this was one nesting site. There were 3 separate sedimentary layers containing Mussarus herds, all in the same area. So this herd continually, constantly returned to this nesting site, suggesting complex behavior. And it's probably not a coincidence when they came back here 3 times and died 3 times, and were all fossilized 3 separate times. And then fossilization, we know, isn't a 100% guarantee it's going to happen every time. So out of every time they've come back to this nesting site, there have been 3 times where there has been lots of fossilization happening. which means they've likely come back many more times to have these 3 random fossilizations happen. So rather than the fossilizations being like a set, this happened 3 times, and that's it. These are little snapshots into what was already going on. And because Mussarus was so much more basal than Protoceratops, because it was from the early Triassic rather than the late Cretaceous like the Protoceratops, it could suggest that maybe these social behaviors formed really early in the dinosaurs. And so maybe those Protoceratops, juvenile aggregations, adult groups, subadult pair, maybe those 3 could be social groupings rather than just for protection, breeding, and whatever the subadult pair would be doing. And this is the last thing I've got for this series of the proto-mammals, pterosaurs, and dinosaurs social groupings and social behaviors. Although I did, I believe, just see something about, what was it? I lost it. Oh, I did see something about saber-toothed cats having social behaviors. So if you want to see more of those, more added to this series of social behaviors in prehistoric animals, let me know in the comments. Let me know what animals you want me to see looking into. Or even if you want me to look into plants, which probably aren't going to be social behaviors because I don't know if plants do that, but maybe plants' interactions with the environment around them, and maybe the animals too. But to conclude this series, proto-mammals, pterosaurs, and dinosaurs all had forms of social behavior. And although it's really hard to see in fossil evidence, the act of being social may have been more prevalent in early animals than it is commonly thought to have been. And that's really all I've got. Go ahead and check out the description. It's going to show you the references I used for these 2 designs in this video, for the Protoceratops and Velociraptor, which I did not design them. They're characters made by someone else, or 2 other people. And this piece is based around the little fossil of the Protoceratops and Velociraptor fighting. And it's not the same pose, because that fossil was so confusing, I just could not figure it out. I'm going to show a picture on the screen now. Just look at this thing and try and figure out what's going on. I could not have done that. But this Protoceratops was a struggle. That's why you don't see a lot of chunks in this recording, partially because I forgot to record in the middle. But in the beginning, because I cut that out, because I was struggling so much with the Protoceratops, it was taking up way too much time. I'll show you here one of my failed attempts. This was going to be watercolor, but I could not translate the thumbnail to a bigger piece of paper because of this Protoceratops' head. But that's going to be it. Check out the description. I'm going to put my citations for the research, if I can find them. And then also, I'm going to link a video that it talks about Protoceratops aggregations a little more. Basically, it's a lecture. In the end, it says, we're not sure, but this could have been a thing happening. So Mussarus basically kind of supports that, showing dinosaurs could be social. And then also check the description for those characters to check them out, the creators of them. And that'll be it. I'll probably be working on, Thylacoleo next time.